Hello and welcome to Raghav's Take. There's a there's a wonderful joke about economists. If there are five in a room, there will be six opinions. But there's a rare unanimity among economists in assessing Donald Trump's punitive tariffs. Almost every prominent thinker, from Larry Summers to Joe Stiglitz to Fareed Zakaria to Iswar Prasad and actually a ton of others. Everybody believes these will be inflationary and hurt America. Perhaps also help China step into the vacuum and become a stronger economy. While I am a simple hack, nowhere near a globally acclaimed economist, I did write about this phenomenon within the first few days of Trump's turbulent second term, how MAGA, MAGA, stands for Make America Go Alone. How a subterranean, quiet coalition of China, India, Europe, especially the UK, France, and Germany, along with Japan, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and a few other significant economies could push back against America's hegemony. Banded together, these countries enjoy a much bigger economic footprint than America. So, spurred by a natural, almost primeval instinct for survival, I wager that these viscerally threatened nations will, they will put conflicts on hold and they will huddle together. Now, if this were to happen, and hard evidence is already apparent that this is happening, it could force Europe to actually reclaim slivers of an earlier dynamism and make China great again. So within this emerging context, a fascinating thesis was put forward by Michael Froman, entitled China has already remade the international system. And this was published in Foreign Affairs magazine on the 25th of March 2025. Froman asserts that instead of remolding China into a quasi-Western style, free market, semi-democratic society, now that was America's strategic ambition ever since Nixon and Kissinger embraced an isolated communist country in 1972, that's not happened. But it's China that has remade America. According to Froman, the first 2 decades of China's economic liberalization, these were anchored by the redoubtable Deng Xiaoping and carried forward by President Jiang Zemin and Premier Zhu Rongji. These were very broadly consonant with what's called the Washington Consensus. And that means, state enterprises were whittled down, private investment was encouraged, the economy was thrown open to foreign capital and trade, culminating in China's very optimistic entry into the World Trade Organization at the turn of the century. But then, China took a rebellious turn, first under President Hu Jintao, who gave huge subsidies to what he called national champions. These were in strategic sectors. And much more remarkably, in President Xi Jinping's continuing 13-year term, which has converted China into a beacon of state capitalism. Powered by the government, China has created overwhelming capacities. And you won't believe that. 2/3 of global car production. 2/3. Over half of the world's steel, aluminium and ships. Over half. It's also used questionable intellectual property rules to compete with America in cutting-edge technology, and that includes artificial intelligence. And therefore, Froman concludes, that's what he says, tariffs and protectionism, restrictions on investment, measures designed to drive domestic production, Washington's economic policy suddenly looks an awful lot like Beijing's policies over the last decade or so, like Chinese policy with American characteristics. End quote. But why am I being nagged by the thought that something powerful has been left unsaid or has been ignored? That while the arguments are logical, a critical strand is missing. I think I get it. Amongst global economists, there is a singular, there's a tunnel-like focus on comparing America and China on just two coordinates, economic policies and the impact of capital and technology investments. Even Michael Froman's argument is that America is being forced to become like China on these two parameters. But a highly critical, vital third dimension is woefully absent, namely the contribution of China's awe-inspiring manpower. Whether high technology professionals or shop floor workers, their contribution in creating the Chinese miracle economy. So here's the trillion-dollar question. Can America's workforce match the awesome Chinese as Uncle Sam gears up to adopt the Chinese model of growth? And of course, it should be noted here that America's workers are more productive, granted, more productive. But that is a historical asymmetry that's being rapidly corrected. Chinese and American workers across categories are radically different. Period. They're just different. The Chinese work ethic is rooted in Confucian values. The concepts of Shao, that's filial piety. Li, that's ritual and discipline. Ren, that's moral integrity. And Zhong, that's loyalty to authority and hierarchy. These values imbue the Chinese citizen with unquestioning respect, devotion, and commitment towards family, society, workplace, and the state. According to Pew Research, over 85% of Chinese have implicit trust in their government and in the national institutions. An astonishing 85% also prioritize the collective social imperative over personal freedom. And finally, almost 90% take very great pride in China's economic success and global influence. Now, against this, barely 24% Americans had confidence in Uncle Sam, their government. This was in a 2021 survey. About 70% were convinced that individual rights outweigh any collective societal goal. And while 75% were proud Americans, it's not a monolithic sentiment. It sort of yo-yos with, the polarizing politics of the day. Americans, as we know, are also highly individualistic. They drive hard at work. They also give equal importance to personal time and leisure. About 60% say they would prefer a healthy work-life balance to a maniacal focus on achieving success. In what I would call a sharp, actually almost inhuman contrast, most Chinese workers swear by the 996 work ethic. What's the 996 work ethic? It's work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. 6 days a week. But of late, some young Chinese workers are, they're reneging through some movements like the Tang Ping. This is the lying flat movement, or the Bailan, which is let it rot movements, which are, going against this 996 work ethic. But this is still a fringe protest. Ultimately, China's workers are buoyed by an emotional intoxicant, optimism. Over 90% were convinced that the economy would continue to grow with better living standards. Against this, barely 55% Americans were optimistic because they were weighed down by unequal incomes and disruptions. While 80% of Chinese were satisfied with their personal economic condition, only 60% Americans felt the same. Now look at China's propaganda apparatus. This has also very relentlessly proselytized the notion of an ideal worker. The legends of Zhu Jiangzhang, that's from 1328 to 1398. He was the founder of the Ming dynasty. And Lei Feng, 1940 to 1962. He was the ultra-patriotic soldier whose diaries immortalized the credo of serve the people. These legends have been assiduously drilled into the citizens' consciousness. Both were poor orphans who lived and died for the nation. As against this, America has created no similar icons. Neither George Washington nor Abraham Lincoln is venerated by citizens. Clearly then, from the arguments that I've just given you, it's impossible, frankly, not just impossible, it's actually undesirable for Americans, either professionals or shop floor personnel, to match the dogged, frankly, almost robotic work ethic and unquestioning loyalty of the Chinese. So, when America attempts to clone Chinese policies of state intervention, restrictions, and protectionism, it's destined to fail because America cannot clone Chinese workers. Therefore, America must stick with competitive and free market capitalism. Its individualistic workers and entrepreneurs, they thrive in that. They will get stifled. They will get stifled and rebel against any attempt to become like China. This was Raghav's take today.